Chew on This, where we practice theology as a community in the reality of our messy lives. This discussion comes from our Maranatha Forest Lake Wednesday Night Church, the pastoral preaching notes, and the live large group discussion these notes prompted, something we like to call a community-based learning experience. Pastor Orlean, your host, has been ministering as part of Maranatha since the inception of the church almost 45 years ago. She loves studying God's Word, sharing what she has learned, and encouraging all to chew on this with Jesus and others. Along with her passion for Jesus and solid theology, she loves spending time with family, hiking in the woods, and taking curious and peculiar pictures. So come on, chew on this with us.
Price is the cost of things. What is just too much to pay for something? I mean, there's a line. What is just too much? And what is just too cheap? This is Pastor Orlean Hasseltine, along with Pastor Michelle Ingram and our producer, back from his fishing trip, Jim McGannon, and we all thank you for joining us this Monday for the first half of our discussion on Chew on This. The second half will be broadcast on Tuesday at noon right here on WAJC, Your Life Radio, 91.7 FM. This discussion was held live with the Wednesday night crew at Maranatha's Forest Lake campus. We are in the fifth episode. We are at the fifth episode in our series, fairly new series, which may go on forever and ever. Letters from Prison, week 5 being Colossians 2. And I have to make a confession. It took me a moment, because I do all of my sermon prep at home. It took me a moment in my dining room pacing, trying to put together thoughts that you've just studied, whatever you do to put so you can write it out, thinking, I can't do it that way because we'll never get done with this series because we still have, let's see, where is the notes? Here we go. We still have Ephesians to go through and Philippians after Colossians is done. So you can't spend 10 weeks in the book of Colossians, which would be no problem for me. But the processing and pulling out concepts and doing what our boss around here has trained us all. You do either a 3-point sermon for 50 years, and then after that you can exchange the structure. But looking for those significant points in each and every chapter, that I figure, a chapter a week, but even that, I'm not sure we'll still be here until 2030. I don't know. Just loving the conversation and getting to know this church, because this is a church I would like to know. I would like to have been there. I would like to have seen exactly what he meant when he wrote these things, the nuances that are culturally relevant there that we miss. Just curious, because in my mind, I have them as probably like the example of we haven't done Ephesians yet, because I know they were the main hub back in the day. That was Port Central. But I'm just curious, what was it like walking into this church in what's his name's house?
Oh,
Philemon.
Yeah,
it was in Philemon's house.
Yep.
And what was that like? And who all was there? A lot of Gentiles. There was a lot of Gentiles there, and that very, very new experience of having Jew and Gentile together in a worship setting. And what was that like? And did anybody get their nose out of joint because of that, and how did they handle it? Because normal, everyday people things happened all the time in this community. And it appears that they, it had probably had to do with Epaphras being the one who planted the church and trained them.
He would be an interesting person to know.
Yeah, just because I have been caught off guard that this is a love letter. I was waiting for okay, now what did they do wrong? I mean, because letters were expensive. This was, communicating had to be only and what was important, and that had to be said. So this one, it's just the sweetness of it. It's kind of undone me a little bit, and it's just letting you know, Pastor Michelle, I don't know if you found it with Philemon, but prepping for sermons when you're in something that's sweet and it's ministering to you, it's just new. It just takes like twice as long to prep because you stop and you pause and you end up in a state of worship, or I don't get it, so I have to walk away until that piece of information finds its spot, so then I can continue on. And that's happened quite a bit in this. And we're in chapter 1.
Well, and reading it through and reading Philemon and where Paul was coming from and the encouragement he was giving them. It was encouragement.
Not encouragement that had correction, mainly in keep going this way so this doesn't
Right.
become a problem.
Right.
Yes. Don't do that. It
Yep.
becomes a really big problem.
Yep.
Yes. So last night I once again brought up the quotes because every time I open a new commentary, I find another compliment about the book of Colossians and the things that were in there. And I would just like to repeat 3 of them here today in this podcast. The highest doctrine concerning Jesus Christ in the New Testament, and that's quoted from the Renovari Spiritual Formation Bible. It's on page 2137 in case you want to know. The things you put in your notes, right? And then from Paul, we get this epistle, to express it in one word, distinguishes the true Christ from a fictitious one. So knowing what we're going to be talking about today when we really take a dive into structuring what Gnosticism is, that this 4-chapter book here is going to help you realize, oh, that's what that was. And that is the point that Paul has, as I'm gathering, that's going to be the main point of every single chapter. And then from Lucas, the InterVarsity Press commentary, a customary greeting introduces us to one of Paul's most powerful and attractive letters. Most powerful and attractive. So the attractive part is what caught me off guard, and still does every time I go in there. Because as we prep, you read through all 4 chapters, and then you read through them again in a different version. And usually there's 3 versions of that. To kind of get the solid, things just solidify in your head after you've read through it 3 times, and then you go and you start picking apart what surprised you, or what something here isn't fitting quite right. Paul's not angry.
No.
Paul's not yelling at somebody.
Unusual.
Yes, he's not emphasizing the law. So he had to have a delightful time. And can you imagine the sweetness in his heart? Thinking, I've trained Epaphras, and this is what he's done. Epaphras knows the territory. Paul doesn't know this territory. He's never been to this church, but he knows the person who he trained to lead, and he lives there. This is his hometown area. So, because there's Aeropolis and the one with L. He planted Laodicea. Yeah, all 3 of those are in the area, and they think Colossae is probably the least popular town in that triangle, but they're not, quote unquote, in that time. They were considered close cities. They were close enough to one another that they fed into each other. So boom, 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 100 miles away from Ephesus, there's 3 churches are planted. Boom, boom, boom. And it seems to be that excitement. Here we go, a church planting, and it's exciting, and they're watching people who had no idea how valuable they were, and they're created on purpose. And there's an intimate God who created you and loves you. They're finding that out, and it's just going blah, 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 blah. And that is the feel when we jump in and we get into Colossians 1. So last week, in last week's podcast on episode 4, we talked about heresy or heretics, that topic isn't leaving this letter. It's just in there. And what does love got to do with being a Colossian, being in the Colossians church, and that fun word hesed and agape and what they mean. And that is a very bedrock principle, because when you understand what he's saying and why he's writing this, you really get to know that this is a church that knows how to love people and have to have a habitual process. And someone in there, maybe it is Epaphras, but I'm guessing there's more, maybe Philemon by this time. Their love is just becoming, especially with Onesimus, it appears that he gave him his freedom. He didn't own him anymore, whatever kind of working servant slave he was to Philemon. Maybe that sparked some of this stuff Paul is talking about with love. There is this change. There is this overwhelming, whatever Jesus says for you, to love others so their life can be better, which is basically the definition of hesed. I don't count the cost I'm carrying. I want to see you experience this. So that is another piece of what puts together what we're going to be talking about here in this episode. I just have to turn the page. I've got big red lines through my notes here. There's 3 points. I'm pretty sure we're going to get through all 3. Last week we only got through 2, so we're going to get through 3 points. We're going to be talking about this church is young, but they are not stupid. They are not stupid. And what is that? How is that noted in this first chapter? And then the source of not stupid, where does that sense of can he come from? I guess that would be the best word I would use. And then there's the price Paul paid. There's a price he paid so they could have this experience, which I think was really important that he put that, especially in the first portion of the letter, that I want you to understand this. It helps them know who he is and accept what he's saying, because they know he's cared enough that he's paid this really, really big price. So I would like to read a quote out of Lucas's commentary, Fullness and Freedom, the Message of Colossians, and Philemon from InterVarsity Press. And I want to read it because it kind of gives this different perspective, once again, jumping into different commentaries on Colossians, this different perspective towards this church. And he's writing his opinion about the stuff that he's read in other commentaries, but this is what he says. It's a little bit longer, but I will try to read it like the letter is supposed to be, but it's not actually in the book of Colossians. But try to read it in that Danny DeVito style. No, okay, here we go. That'll stick in my head for a long time. I would say forever, but I'm of the age where things move out of the brain. All right. Perhaps the real mistake was ever to think of the Colossian heresy in two pagan terms. The curious mixture of error, superstition, and heathen mythology, which some commentators have suggested as the threat to the Colossian Christians, would deceive the youngest convert, far less a church grounded in Christian truth by the conscientious Epaphras. We must give these early believers some credit for being able to recognize religious twaddle, best word in the quote, when they heard it, especially since they had just been recently delivered from it. This human perspective, they have come out of this. I hadn't considered that. It really makes a difference when you're reading the book of Colossians to realize they're new. This is all new. They're newly in love with Jesus and finding out, this other way that we were trained to have a supernatural experience with quote-unquote God or gods. And they have to do this, otherwise calamity falls on you, and the gods of this territory are going to come, and it's your fault, and we're going to throw you in a fire because you haven't been obedient to the God of the territory. I mean, that whole process, they get it. And they are far enough out and still young enough in community gathering where they're offering individuals. Do you think still at this time they're offering individuals a sacrifice?
In the area?
Close enough that they know that it goes on. That there's that sense of that this God requires a human sacrifice. And there's this, in my head, I keep seeing ancient stuff out of the Old Testament. But there is this crazy, they know all of that crazy. So when you write like, they're so sweet and innocent, they don't know that. It's like, no, they knew probably some of this stuff that Paul is going to be warning them about. They just knew it from a different source. But they could smell it because they just walked out of it.
Right.
It is much like someone who's working at being sober, and they can spot someone who is not working at being sober at the very beginning of the process. And it's just there because of the experience. And Paul, as we are going to pick up Colossians chapter 1 and verse 9, all of the preceding 8 verses, Paul is talking about to them, your love for others, your hesed, is so bearing fruit that it is bearing fruit that this can be. You're doing all of this stuff, this great big hug. Paul's giving them a verbal hug. You're doing so well, let me hug you. So now he's going to tell them things that are happening, all right? And I'm reading out of the Amplified Version. For this reason, since the day we heard about it, we have not stopped praying for you, asking specifically that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will and all spiritual wisdom, with insight into his purpose, and an understanding of spiritual things, so that you will walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, displaying admirable character, moral courage, and personal integrity, to fully please him in all things, bearing fruit in every good work, and steadily growing in the knowledge of God, with deeper faith, clearer insight, and fervent love for his precepts. We pray that you may be strengthened and invigorated with all power according to his glorious might, to attain every kind of endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father, who has qualified us to share in the inheritance of the saints, God's people in the light. Verse 13, for he has rescued us and has drawn us to himself from the dominion of darkness and has transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption because of his sacrifice, resulting in the forgiveness of our sins and the cancellation of sin's penalty. So he's got a whole lot of things going on here. But for this reason, we haven't stopped praying for you. I have to ask myself, because it's way up at the beginning of this, beginning of the letter, how much of this praying over is part of the effect of them being young but not stupid. I mean, this idea, what is the supernatural connection when you pray for someone in the physical? What happens in the supernatural? This is one process. I would like, in my imagination, I would like to see it once. What really happens? Maybe not, because my mind might go insane when you would see things like that. But that's my guess, because I've never have. How about you two? Have you ever seen anything like that happen?
No, I've not.
No. Yeah.
No.
It has to be unaided by any chemical. So you can't. That don't count.
Yeah.
All right. So I am really curious, and that caught me because of this idea of how much he respects, how loving they are, and this concept of hesed is agape is just prominent in this congregation. So that tells me that Epaphras has something going on. There's something in his leadership that made this very, part of it's because he's a homeboy. He's from the area. But there was something in his character where this just became normal. I'm guessing he really has it down too, that he really has it in himself. So this idea of the prayers, what are the results of our prayers for others? I mean, what does it really look like? How does it really affect? Because I am personally looking for this, they're young but not stupid. They're respected. He's talking to them like grown-ups. They're new in their faith, and they've got it down. Who were these people? And what kind of things went into the planting of the church, as we put it in today's terms? So how much does this praying over, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 being not so much? Where would you put it, Michelle?
I'd put it closer to 1, foundational.
Okay.
Foundational.
The praying over at 1.
Yep. And you do, I wonder if it's like John when he saw what Revelation was, seeing it. It has to, because Paul does it all the time.
This praying over.
The praying over people. Yeah. And he prays for people all the time. So he values it. Okay,
so 1 is it's the very beginning, 10 is the,
then the opposite.
So you would say it would be a 10.
Closer to a 10. Because he values it so much. He says it all the time. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you in all the different books. So to put it at the foundation of the letter, to set them up for the rest of it, this is what I'm praying for you.
How about you, Jim?
Well, my thought is, besides prayer, what else did they have?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
It's like walking out in the middle of your yard and say, I'm going to plant a garden, but I don't have a shovel. I don't have a hoe. I don't have any seeds. It started from nothing and just really just word of mouth and one person teaching the next and teaching the next and teaching the next. So, it's not like today where we fall back on Bibles and lessons learned. It was all brand new.
And it's so easy to read by when you're reading your Bible. Oh, yes. I prayed for you. Oh, that's sweet.
Yes.
You're so nice.
Exactly.
And when we say that in our culture, it's almost a greeting. I mean, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but or maybe you intend to.
Yep.
It doesn't slap you with gratitude.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Unless it's a conversation and they pray for you right then and there.
Or it's somebody that you know. If you say, I'm praying for you about that, there's weight behind that. Same thing.
Oh,
there's weight behind it because who said it.
Yes.
Same thing. And you're like, yep, they actually are. Whereas it is true. Oh, at a funeral, I'm praying for you. Thanks. Yep. Yeah.
So very foundational. Who it's coming from. The main source when they start things. Lord, give us direction. Watch over all of the things that you would want for. You start listing them because God is your supplier. He's the place where you go to get the structure to build this church, and asking for those things. And now Paul will be starting to talk about more of those things he's asking for, and he's letting that church in Colossae know, these are the things I'm asking for you. In verse 9, he is saying, For this reason, since the day we heard about it, we've not stopped praying for you. That he is asking that they may be filled with the knowledge of his will, of God's will. He's asking for the complete knowledge. Not just, I want you to know what God's thinking. No, I want you to understand God in his fullness. I want you to know God from A to Z. So the concept of complete. And in Psalm 143:10, it gives us an example of people who are open to, I want this knowledge. Whatever this complete knowledge of his will, yeah, please, just go ahead and, put it in my brain for me, please. But here in Psalm 143, it says this, teach me to do your will. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. This is the consequence of yes to knowledge. I want to know your complete will. There's that, I want to see, and what in the world that opens in the natural world, as well as how it affects things in the supernatural. That they're mixed together here. But now there's a different example in Zephaniah, which the joke was, I was saying, that book that you just got done studying, Zephaniah 1:4-6, and it gives us a prophet's response to an opposite, where no was the answer to this knowledge. I will stretch out my hand against Judah and against all who live in Jerusalem. I will destroy every remnant of Baal worship in this place. The very names of the idolatrous priest, those who bow down on the roofs to worship the starry host, those who bow down and swear by the Lord and also swear by Moloch, those who turn back from following the Lord and neither seek the Lord nor inquire of him. I will stretch out my hand against you. That is the consequence of saying no to this knowledge. And granted, there may be some priest of the Lord that if they didn't worship Moloch, they were going to be killed. That is in there. But it doesn't matter. You can't do that. There isn't so, we don't live in a time like that. I won't say any more about that. We don't live in a time like that. So it is a choice. In Psalm 40, verse 8, it says, I desire to do your will, my God. Your law is within my heart. Paul is praying this kind of stuff for this wonderful church at Colossae. And I have to ask myself, who do I pray this stuff for? I mean, have I done this? I mean, I pray emergency or problem or sorrow. Because when we got in here today, we prayed for a friend of ours going through some hard funerals, some things that are just really difficult. Not that, there are hard funerals, and then there are funerals that are a celebration. So, and just praying for that I desire to do your will, God. Your law is within my heart. Do I do that? Do I really want to do his will? Matthew 6:10 says, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is Jesus speaking. And then in Mark 3:35, whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. It is a choice. There is a definite progression in there of this is what I want. And I've seen and tasted the other stuff, but this is what I want. And for individuals who haven't seen and tasted the other stuff, this is where personal stories and also living in community comes really helpful. Because if you fall in love with Jesus, I was 13 years old, coming from a life of nothing but being a 13 wonderful, irritating, perfect child. Just ask my 3 older sisters. And I have Pollyanna. There's my face in that definition. Thank you, Jesus. What a wonderful, wonderful experience to have. So reading some of this, I don't have anything to look back on and say, I liked that better. But it doesn't matter where you come from. This knowledge, this is something that he is praying that you want it so bad that you are going to do whatever, so you can not just study it and learn it, that you can live it, that you can own it to the point where it just becomes part of your process. Which, wouldn't it be great if we could just take the green pill and then that would happen? Oh, no, okay, I can have all that. It just doesn't work that way. It is a daily get-up decision that I'm going to love you and think of your needs over mine. That agape hesed. So he's praying for the knowledge that it's going to take for that to stay within this group of people. I want that to be for them. We're going to take a little break right here, and when we come back, we will continue talking about why pray for knowing God's will.
Such great discussion and content makes you want to dig in even more to the Word. We'll get right back to it shortly. In the meantime, here's more information about the church and where to find this show and many others like it.
Maranatha has campuses in Forest Lake, Minnesota, and Chisago Lakes, Minnesota. We have been serving our communities for decades, well over 40 years of loving God and loving people. Enjoy what you're hearing here? Visit yourliferadio.com for links to our other radio shows.
We would love to have you join us at one of our Maranatha campuses. Visit yourliferadio.com for links to both of our campuses for more detailed information. Now, back to Chew on This.
So here we're encountering Paul, and he's praying for God's knowledge over them, and he wants them to know God's will. And so there is this concept of that the churches of Jesus Christ can never be immune from intellectual and spiritual pressures and fashions of their time. They're always going to be affected and infected by the culture that they are within, and that's from Lucas's commentary. And it makes you pause a little bit because Paul definitely knows that. And he has that. It's an undercurrent because he knows that's just humanity. That's how communities go. He's not saying you're doing this, but he's saying, hey, there's this undercurrent. And it's nice to know that when you're reading the book of Colossians that he's not correcting anything. He is forecasting, I have seen. And unfortunately, he was very correct because this is being written somewhere between 52 and 55 AD. And somewhere around between the 200 and 300 AD, what he has was fearful that would happen actually did happen. And Gnosticism just blew up in the area. And it is crazy because it's never left the planet. I mean, it's just an intense. So, that number is really tiny. There we go. I'm going to just butcher his name. In Gnosticism, Yamachi. That sounds about as good as I'm going to get. He has this quote when he talks about that this fully developed system that Paul was warning them about didn't pose the greatest threat to the church until the 2nd and 3rd centuries. And he said, in this stage where the church is right now, in the early stages, Gnosticism was not so much a movement as a mood. It was just this mood. It's like tangible. Are people happy? Are people sad? There is. And so the question becomes, how long does it take for a mood to turn into a movement? And we see from history that it takes like 200 years. In this case, not even that long, maybe 100 years. And going through a few generations. And what this burgeoning new church knew, because they knew what life was like without Jesus Christ in their life. They knew what it was like not to have that love, that training, that process, that community, that powerful spiritual influence coming from the supernatural, not the negative, evil influence, but this powerful, loving influence. They knew that, and they could compare it to what they had before, and that got lost. A couple generations down, boom. Well, this is normal. Wait a minute. You have inside knowledge. You have more knowledge. You mean knowledge is where, we'll get to that. The temptation of being the one in the know and being able to trump everybody else because you know more. That doesn't go away. It's called human ego, and we would call it self-aggrandizement. And once again, the core sin of Satan. It's there. It's never gone until we meet Jesus face to face. So how long does it take go from a mood to a movement? I just love that concept. It's like it doesn't take too long. There is this word, and I'm going to, for those who have studied Gnosticism, who know all this, just please be patient with me because it is really intriguing because you can see some tendrils that are still spoken and taught in our current culture, and you're going to laugh. I'm like, really? How long but whenever a lie is thrown out there, the thing that sticks to us is the thing that fills something that is empty in us.
Yes.
The desire to be in control, the desire to belong, the desire to not die, the desire, whatever
to not
it is.
Not
look stupid, or to be right. That I can trump you with my right knowledge. And if you love intellect, Gnosticism is your baby because everything is based on what you know. You worship knowledge. So there is this. It's called biblical demiurge traditions. A new phrase I learned that there is this taking this not a God thought in it and blending it and mixing it with biblical knowledge and mixing those two together, and you get super Gnosticism. That's my phrase. You get this thing, and it is funny because one of the funniest Gnostic things that I learned is they believe the Old Testament, there's a sect, there's a bazillion sects. One sect believes that the Old Testament God is not eternal, pagan, and kind of a nutcase, but the Old Testament God is like that, the New Testament God is like this. And then there's one that the God who created all of the planet and all of that is this lower God, and it's kind of a joke as well, but it's the God of the Spirit that you go to, the eternal God. There are two different ones. There's a human God and an eternal God. There's one thought that goes, there's an Old Testament God and a New Testament God. So, how about if we start a new line of Gnosticism? It could involve fishing, Jim, that you have to fish because Jesus was a fisherman.
I'm not your guy. I find this whole discussion of Gnosticism exhausting.
And we should.
Why do you want to think this hard?
Yeah.
Just roll with it.
Yes. Well, why do we want to put ourselves as the one who knows what's right? Mm-hmm. Why? And that is the great big lie. And what is so beguiling about this? Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge. And there is this, all of them deal with dualism, that there's the spiritual world and the evil material world, that this material world is evil. So you don't want to have anything to do with what's here. When you think of somebody whipping their back to keep their sin and their physical body under control, it would be something like that. There is this material world is evil. Everything here on this planet, you don't take this stuff with you to heaven. This body that we have, absolutely not. Your spirit goes to heaven. Once you get around where the demons hang out in the supernatural, because you have to bypass them, according to one dude. or one strain of thought, not train, but strain of thought. So there is this. It's out there. We get to look back at it and go, huh. But in this day and time, it's just this little thing that's just a little different. I've really been thinking about this, and I'm thinking that this is what it really looks like. Jesus, God loved him so, and he was supernatural, so there isn't any way he could be physical. So whenever we see a physical thing, it had to be something else, where Jesus was a hologram, per se. He was just this phantom. Because he really could not be human. There isn't any way you could have an eternal God be human. You just can't. And so that's a whole nother line. That there is that. There's some of this stuff I just had to read because it was just really funny. Plato was the big one. I don't know if he started it all, but he is the main one, the most recognizable candidate for being a Gnostic leader. And you worship reason. There's this thing called recollection, that your soul or your form came from the land of form, and you came here, and once you're here, you're going to relearn. You forgot everything in the land of form that you came from, so you're down here now, and you're going to learn it again, learn it whatever, and the more you learn, the more freedom you have here on this planet, so you can go back to the land of form. That's, I know I'm butchering it, but my understanding of all the crazy town, and it can get even crazier than that. So there was no Bible to take and weigh the stuff against. They just heard people, and people that they liked, and people that were going to their church who decided that, you know what, there's more than what Paul has been telling us. And I can share a story from our ancient Maranatha history. We had a family here, and one of the leader in the family decided that you really don't die. If you're holy, your blood is going to materialize and turn into spirit without you dying. That is the goal of Christianity. That's what the Bible really, really, can I emphasize the word really, talks about. And lots of kids, great family, and they left. And they couldn't be here. He thought he would keep it a personal belief, but it's too... You don't attach yourselves to heresies like that because you think they're right. You attach yourselves because you know that you now have insider info, and you want to trump other people with your insider info. And whether we ever admit to it or not, our ego's involved in all of this. So this stuff still happens. I mean, this happened in the past 15 years.
Well, and I wonder, people have different personalities. Some people who are studiers, who love that kind of thing, this would be really intriguing to them, which is where you would get now. It's, we have what we call the elite.
Yes.
The people who are the elites and that think that they know better and can rule the country better.
That's Gnostic.
It's Gnosticism. It's today, but we still have it today. We just don't, the intellectuals, the ones that are
Well, you worship knowledge.
We worship knowledge.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They just
Yeah, because you can be an intellectual without worshiping knowledge.
Exactly.
Yep. And the only thing that's going to stand in the way of this stealing people's belief in Christ is that the church stood up. They stood up and said, that isn't true. That is a lie. That still comes in handy today.
Yes.
Yesterday, I talked to 2 different people about the process of saying it out loud.
Yes.
When something goes through your head and you know it's not true, whether it's personal or biblical or whatever, you say it out loud. Just don't say it too loud if you're in Walmart. Because people will come ask you, tell me about this lie. Yeah, that's right. That is a lie. Because it interrupts that process in your head that for some, that has become a cyclical, not reciprocal, but it's a cyclical thought process.
In your head.
And it interrupts it. It's known as part of behavior therapy. So here we have the church trying to stand up to this. There's a list of our founding church fathers, the patriarchs of Christianity. They all wrote about Gnosticism. Every one of them had it in their writings. So it isn't just this little thing.
Right.
Paul seen it coming. And that just freaks me out. This dude, the intellect, Leonardo da Vinci of his age.
He is an intellect. He is
intellectual,
but puts it all under Jesus.
Right.
That's the difference.
Well, he used to worship it. He's like the Christians at Colossae. That I was there, and I know. Maybe he had a little bit of that kindred spirit stuff going on here with them. And it's like, oh, yep, I know this happens because I see it. I have decided to give my love of knowledge to God, to Christ, to put it in that safety net and to enjoy the learning through Him, which is truth, instead of the stuff that makes me look good or gives me power and authority here on this planet. So the sources that speak of these candidates, so they know that this was going on. What Paul was talking about, church history tells us that is there. Our history, just history tells us that it's there. There is Justin, martyr of Samaria. He was one of the church fathers in 165 A.D. Irenaeus of Lyon in 225 A.D., Clement of Alexandria in 215 A.D. So we're talking, take off 30 years to get it since Jesus was around. So one of them, it's 135 years after Jesus went to heaven, Justin, Justin martyr. Clement of Alexandria, 215 A.D., Tertullian of Carthage, 225. Hippolytus of Rome, 236, Origen in 254, and this last one was from 403 A.D., Epiphanius. And it's interesting, there's 2 of them, Origen and Clement. They were really, 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 really sympathetic to this Gnostic emphasis of the spiritually elite. Because one of the things in Gnosticism is you're going to have the spark. There's the spark that lies within you, the spark of life, the sparky. You have sparky in you, all right? And there is this thing of registering you higher. I believe it's attached to some of that. Well, we have 2 of our founding fathers. It's like, yeah, there are some spiritually elite individuals. And it's like, I can't find that, especially in this argument all the time. And we're, it's there that there is no, Paul regurgitates that with everything he says. There is no sectarianism. There isn't this and that. It's just us. There is just us. You have to get over, well, there's those people, and then there's, no, that doesn't work. So seeing that, even at that level, it's just so incredibly sad. So here comes some of the really, really fun things that I learned about different leaders of Gnostic groups in antiquity. And like you said, Jim, it's so crazy. It's crazy town. So they believe Simon of Samaria in Acts chapter 8. There is some controversy about it, but that all of the early church fathers said he was the source. He was the source of, he was the arch Gnostic. He was the beginning of it. And he is the one who came and followed which 2 people were doing the mission work in Samaria.
I thought it was Peter and...
I said Peter and John because I couldn't. I know it was there, but he's following them around. And he wants their power. He wants their ministry thing. And then when he sees them pray for new believers and they're filled with the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues, he wants to buy that power from them. And they tell him to go back to where the devil is. We don't, how dare you take something of God and turn it into this? You're corrupt. And so he repents and he follows them around. Now, there are some saying that he really repented and he became part of the church. I've never seen any commentary that talks about Simon of Samaria being part of the church. But these commentaries say that he is this source, and they quote him as saying, the patristic sources say that he claimed to be divine, that he was a divine figure, not God, but divine, and taught that his companion, a former prostitute, was the reincarnated Helen of Troy, which would be a woman of sheer beauty. So, and those, I'm not sure why that's important, that she's the reincarnated Helen of Troy, except maybe a reincarnation facet of Gnosticism, that maybe he said he was the reincarnated Jesus. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. But it's that silly. But he was a really important beginning figure of, well, this is what they're saying, but there's also this. Don't forget this piece. This is part of who you are. Mm-hmm. This is your genetic history. Don't forget this part of you. Or however. Then there's a Menander who said that those who believed in him would not die. You follow me, kind of like that blood theory, the blood thing. Mm-hmm. If your blood turns to spirit, you're not going to die. You're going to go immediately from here into heaven. All right? Maybe that's where it started from. Saturnius believes that marriage, that Jesus, that he held the docetic view of Christ that denied the incarnation. So he wasn't the incarnate Son of God. He was a human being. All right? And he also taught a human being only, that marriage and procreation were from Satan. I thought that was really funny. From Satan.
I don't understand.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. They got to follow me. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, and I was trying to last night when you were talking to relate it to what of those kinds of things do we have today? And we do. Mm-hmm. We have them in different churches. The more up, quote unquote, up you go in the church, the more you know, the more where those things come from. We have that same desire to know, to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it comes down to when Paul talks about Hesed, this agape love, I'm going to love you and treat you in a way that is good and help you grow to all that God wants you to be, instead of I'm going to have you in my life so you can tell me how good I am.
Yes.
I mean, we watch that happen, unfortunately, in church community a lot, where people come and get in, they love it, they're part of the thing, they're around. Then all of a sudden something triggers where they feel that they have to one-up somebody. They have to prove they are more. And there's so much work to do loving people in God's name. Why in the world would you get stuck there? But this is where I say it comes from. It was effective back there, going from a mood to a movement. It's still effective here. There is Cerinthus, who held that Jesus was a man upon whom Christ descended as a dove at his baptism, but left right before his crucifixion because God would not do that to his son. He would not have that. So there's this human body. He came, possessed it, and then left. So it was a possession. It was a crystal. I don't know. There has to be a fun word in there, but my brain hasn't got it. He was possessing this body. Then one called Balsiades, he said that Christ did not suffer, but the Simon of Cyrene was crucified in his place, while the invisible Christ stood by and laughed at him. I seriously.
Why?
I don't know. Why would he stand there and laugh at him? I don't get why that was put in there, or why that was taught through him. Then we have Marcion of Pontus, and Jesus was only spiritual and not human. That's the one where he's a hologram. That Jesus appeared only as a phantom. He was definitely not human. And then Valentinus, I think that's how you pronounce it. Maybe it is Valentinus, but he was the most famous Gnostic teacher. He lasted a long time. It started in 140 A.D. I mean, 100 years there, close. And that humankind was divided into three classes: the unbelievers immersed in nature and flesh, common Christians who lived by faith, and then the spiritual Gnostics. So you have the unbelievers, he called them Hylics, and then the physics were the Christians who lived by faith, and then the pneumatics were spiritually elite. And so there was this question whether Jesus had a physic or a pneumatic body. I don't know. So here, John the Apostle sums it up for us, all right? In 1 John 4:3, he tells us, "And every spirit that does not confess Jesus, acknowledge that he has come in the flesh, but would deny any of the Son's true nature, is not of God." Any demon that would say, well, he's come in the flesh, but he is not spiritual. He's not supernatural. He never came from God. He never was up with God at the right hand, blah, blah, blah. Okay? That spirit is not of God. That is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and is now already in the world. John's telling them, we've seen it, we've heard it, Paul's written about it, now I'm going to tell you he's right, and this is where it comes from. It's evil, it comes from Satan, end of story. Because Jesus is 100% man and 100% God, and you can argue about that until as long as you want, but it is truth. That is why we get what we're doing today. Otherwise, none of this, we would all just be Gnostics.
Right. It wouldn't matter.
Yep. So they are young, but they are not stupid. And now the source of not stupid here in the church of Colossae, knowing Christ the person, knowing the history of, knowing the Messiah, knowing the Lord. This concept of knowledge, the knowledge of Christ, let's just be more general, can we, Paul? Take all the knowledge of Christ and cram it, hose it down into our head. So my question became, as I'm sitting there reading this, trying to put it and organize it into a conversational manner, that what are ways that we get to know Christ? Because if they got to know him back in that time, the process of knowing a human being hasn't changed.
Right.
How do you get to know someone? So how do we get to know Christ? And I love when you're on the floor at Wednesday night church and you're having these conversations and you're preaching, you're going through your whatever. But when you bring up a question and they're not quite sure what you're looking for, everybody freaks. They freeze like the deer in the headlights. I don't know what to say. What if it's wrong? What if it's a big long word? She doesn't know how to spell it. I don't want to stress her out. Because we do not have spell check on our markers. And it's like how you get to know a friend, or how you get to know someone new, the process of getting to know someone. Paul is talking about relationship process. He's not talking about a supernatural outpouring of, things like that happen, strange, crazy spiritual things happen because we are spiritual beings. But knowledge. Michelle, one way you can say without a doubt, because you've experienced it, one way you have used in your life to get to know Christ better.
You talked time with him doing different things, either reading scripture, praying, just time. Time.
What would you put in things like volunteering at like a retreat or like we have snow days coming up this weekend, which is like the most amazing, crazy town for kids, and it's just an amazing, kids weeping in worship is just a beautiful experience. Love this event. Would you count that as part of time with him, or is that serving? So time, learning time, serving is all time.
Because the time that you spend with others that know him, that's so.
Yep.
You get to see them. You get to see. So I do get to volunteer at the snow days, and I've done it for years. And it is an amazing time to get to see him move. So when you see him move and when you see other people, and then you ask questions, and then you have conversation of wanting to know and understand, how did you get through that? That happened in your world. How did you get through that? And I did this. And I did that, and this is how I got through it. And so then you get to know more of who he is. Even if I haven't experienced him in that way, I get to know that experience is available for me. So it's getting to know him, spending time with those who know him and him. Because when you spend time with those who know him, you actually are getting to spend time with him too.
So you would have to take the word time and really define it out, because it seems that it can fall into Everything. So we are going to be closing here our Monday conversation here on week 5, letters from prison, being Colossians. But we're going to pick up this conversation tomorrow, right here on this same station at noon. And I invite you to come back and to hear more conversation about this. This is just the source of Not Stupid. How in the world can this church be so healthy and be so young? And what were things there? Because that is how we want to be. We want to pay the price so we can have that in our life.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Chew on This. Part 2 will air tomorrow, Tuesday at noon, on this station, WAJC. If you'd like to check out this episode's resources, as well as a great archive of past series, head over to yourliferadio.com. Select Chew on This and click on the information icon. We invite you to join us live each Wednesday night at our Forest Lake campus at 6:30 p.m. Original music in My Father's Hand was written and performed by Ron Carlson. A parting thought, as we're all learning to put missional living into practice, let's remember today, wherever we find ourselves, let's love God and love people. See you for the next Chew on This episode. The opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of the owner.